Hi, so we're going to do a brief overview of the functionality available to configure the back end of distributed SailPoint. Now, what we mean by configure is actually to add a store and all of the data required for the store to be able to sell items in the checkout counter. So before we go too far into that, let me say something about the environment that we're running in right now. This is running on a Windows 8.1 laptop. It has a touchscreen, and maybe we'll show the touchscreen. You can't see anything in the video. We have tested it on Windows XP, Windows 7, Solaris, and also different flavors of Linux. Okay, one other item. There is extensive online help available. We have help at a very high level to get you started into the different modules. And then as we get into the modules, we will show you the help as it moves down to more and more detail. Okay, so the approach we're going to take is if we are setting a store up for the first time, first retail operation. And basically the sequence is that we input data to define the geographical location of the store, how to contact the store. Then we enter data regarding where to save the data for the store and how to retrieve it. Then we'll enter data for suppliers, vendors, so we can now then turn around and buy items to sell in the store. After that's completed, we will go into inventory and start adding items into inventory. And then the last move is we will add one employee, because we need at least one employee to log into the point of sale terminal at the checkout counter. So let's do it. We'll hit the store setup. We'll go to the selected tab on the store. And this is where you put the basic information to define the store. You have the capability also to define the items that are at the checkout lane or register. And you could also define the printout that appears on the sales receipts. Okay, so we got the stores. Now we'll go into the databases, and the application can handle either one server for all the databases, or we could have separate servers for different databases. It's up to how the store is planned in the beginning. Okay, so now we looked at the modules to define where the data is to be stored and retrieved from. So let's take a look at suppliers, because that's the next step. Go into the supplier and into the supplier data as far as identification numbers, name, street, and the address, physical location, phone numbers, emails, and web address, etc. We can also enter supplier contacts. Who are the basic individuals within the supplier? Okay, and then we go into, finally, inventory. This is where you're going to spend most of your time entering all the inventory data. And now let's take a look at the high-level help. Now that we're into inventory, we have the introduction, but we have a separate item for each of the tabs in inventory. You can click on those and take a look at what's going on for help for those individual tabs. Get down to the individual tabs, the item data tab, for example, and click on this help. And now here is the detailed information on how to put the items into inventory. High triggers, low triggers, etc. So that's it for inventory. And then finally, we have to, like I said in the beginning, we have to put in one employee, because we need to have a login ID and a password to access the terminals in the checkout lanes. And that is basically it for configuring the system to be able to sell. Now I should make one comment on inventory. There's a lot of data that can be put into inventory. I believe we have over 80 separate pieces of data that define an item in inventory. Now, you don't need all of that, but the more you put in, the more you can control your inventory, and the better your reports are going to be, and the more data you can sort on to get a picture of what's going on in your stores. Really up to you. However, that takes a lot of time. We do have a service, and we used it for a first customer that we had, and we got him out of one point of sale system into ours. And he had an inventory that was 2,300 items long. That's small compared to what the capability of our database is. But he was able to get that inventory out into an electronic form, and that electronic form happened to be a spreadsheet, and we could take the spreadsheet and import it into our database. It took us about 2 days to do that. Of the 2 days, most of the time was spent working with the customer to understand what the data meant in the old point of sale system, so we could put the data into the right place in our point of sale system. That's what takes the time. To actually transfer that data was a matter of about 10 or 15 minutes. Okay, that is it for the brief demonstration. We thank you very much for watching.